Hello, everyone. We're sorry for the 5-minute delay. We all got on and there were some technical issues. So if we have some people that are joining us that are presenting as well, just bear with us. They're coming over to the right area. So we apologize, but thank you for joining us today. My name is Chrissy Yonke, and I work within Fauquier County Public Schools within Family and Community Engagement. And welcome to our January edition of the Fauquier County Public Schools Family Webinars. As many of you know, January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and we really wanted to open up our webinar series to a very important group that has done presentations all throughout our community, and they're called Fauquier Anti-Sex Trafficking Alliance. But before we open up the floor, and they're still coming in to them, and they're going to share their information about themselves. Let's meet some of our school division folks and our Fauquier mental health staff that are joining us this evening, and just do a brief overview of what the webinar is going to look like. So when I say your name, I want you to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And I'm actually going to start with our interpreter. Carol, she is going to introduce herself, and then she's going to do a special message in case some of our listeners need another language. So Carol, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Carol Zuhars. I am one of the interpreters for Fauquier County Public Schools. I'm here mainly to provide assistance with foreign language. So, estoy aquí para prestar ayuda con las lenguas extranjeras, en particular el español. Si alguien necesita traducción, por favor, háganoslo saber. Puede indicarlo también en el chat para que yo pueda ayudarles. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll give them just a second if anybody needs to write in the chat that they need Spanish. Okay, so then we'll move down our list. We have Donna. Donna, will you unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Donna Guzman. I am currently the Student Services Supervisor. I've been in the county for about 10 years. I served as a principal at Marshall Middle and also assistant principal at Fauquier High School. So thanks for having me.
We also have Tina Ferentz and Kathy Medlock are on here as well. They're actually our tech team, and they're helping us. They're helping us get things situated. So if you have a second to say hello, if not, we know you're working hard. Okay. They're working hard. All right. So keep on going is what they're saying. Okay, will do. And they'll be available to answer questions later. They're just making sure everybody gets on. Okay. We also have some mental health of Fauquier County on here. Renee, will you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Renee Norton with the Mental Health Association.
And we also have Bridget.
Hi, everyone. Bridget Downey with the Mental Health Association.
And I already introduced myself. I'm Chrissy Yonke with Fauquier County Public Schools Family Engagement. So let's go over a little bit of how the webinar will work. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And I do want to let everybody know that all the people that you just had introduced to you will be available at the end for any questions. If you have questions about the school division related to this topic or mental health, they're available at the end to answer questions. Before I introduce our main speakers, please know within this webinar, you're free to use both the chat and the Q&A to ask any questions you may have as you're listening to our presenters tonight. Tina, Kathy, and I, we're going to be monitoring while the presenters are speaking throughout the evening, and we'll share your questions after the presentation and once we begin our panel discussion. During the panel discussion, all panelists will be available to answer any questions you may have. Please understand that basically all our speakers tonight are volunteering their personal time this evening to talk with us. So please understand a lot of them are doing this at home. And so if there are any children or pets that come scrambling across the screen, or you hear a random bark or a cry of, hey, mom, just know we're all working hard and giving our personal time. So we're just going to keep on moving along and just get a little giggle out of it, and we'll just keep on rolling. So also please know that this webinar is being recorded, and it'll be translated in Spanish and shared to our community within our division's school newsletters in the very near future. So I've talked enough. I want to open it up to our presenters. So without further ado, let's meet our first speaker, Amelia Stansel. Amelia, thank you for joining us today and your whole group. Go ahead, the screen is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everyone being here. I know it's a busy time of the year that we all have stuff going on, and this is a really important topic, so that you took the time to jump on a webinar, whether you're watching it right now live or you're watching it later. Really, really appreciate you took the time to do that. And thank you, Christine, for the introduction. Again, I'm Amelia Stansel. I'm the co-founder of the Fauquier Anti-Sex Trafficking Alliance. We're an organization also of volunteers that we get together to talk about things that relate to sex trafficking, sextortion, human trafficking of different sorts. So want to just kind of lead you guys through, and I'm going to act as the facilitator today, and I'll introduce each of the other speakers as we go, so you'll get a chance to meet them along the way. I am hoping that you guys can see my screen. Are you able to see it? Did it work? Oh, nope. Did not yet, because I did not actually click the thing. So I'm glad I can see Renee shaking her head. Thank you, Renee, for being a good sport on that one there.
See it now.
Perfect. Excellent. It helps if I click the next button. I'm not used to Teams for sharing, so bear with me. Tonight, you're going to hear from speakers from the Fauquier Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and ATI, which is Anti-Trafficking International. I represent the Rotary Club of Warrenton, which is the convener of the alliance, where we pull together the meetings and help keep things going within the alliance of organizations that we have. So that's why you also see our logo down there at the bottom. So as we get started here, I'm going to find my screen. Fauquier Anti-Sex Trafficking Alliance, we were founded in 2018, and our mission is to inoculate our community through awareness and prevention education, and then supporting our survivors and their families when we fail. We're an alliance of community organizations and agencies and individuals working towards this common goal. There's a direct connection that you'll hear later in the presentation tonight between sextortion and sex trafficking. So I think it's important that you understand that's why we're leading there, so you understand that piece of it, that there is a direct correlation. So they're not completely standalone. We were asked by our partners at the FBI and the Fauquier County Sheriff's Office back in 2020 to start thinking about this thing that was called sextortion. Honestly, I didn't know anything about it. It was a totally new terminology to me. I'm a banker by trade. This is not something, the world that I live in on a daily basis. So as I started to learn more and more about trafficking and about sextortion, that's how we got into this topic. And we're seeing a very dangerous increase here in Fauquier County among our young people and our adults as well. So you're going to kind of hear both of those tonight from the Sheriff's Office and then also the FBI. There'll be some videos to watch. There will be conversation at the end and some conversation starters for you with your students if you get a chance to be able to have a conversation with them. Some of the schools have invited us in to do assemblies where we bring in not this exact presentation, so the videos aren't there. It's really just the part that that Detective Shaw and Special Agent Calloway do, that will come into the schools to do it too. So if it's something that, if you're an educator that's on here that you want to invite us in, we are happy to get that scheduled within your school. Just let us know. So why are we here? This is an interesting, and I can't remember, I actually got this from Renee or who sent this to me, but this is an interesting factoid, I thought, that shows when do children get their smartphones. If you look on here, the dramatic increase from 2015 to 2021, that in 2015, only 11% of 8-year-olds, third graders, had cell phones. Today, in 2021, so this is for 2024 now, but in 2021, that had already jumped to 31%. Look at when you go through with this all the way through from beginning to end. You look at 12-year-olds in 2021, 71% had had access to a smartphone and so on. So this is super important, and why we wanted to talk about this, because kids have more and more access through the smartphones to be able to be reached by these little devices that we all have. Most US teens are spending at least 4 hours per day on social media. I can't say I'm not among them at times on my social media. I will say that I do use it a lot as well for good things. But I think it's interesting to see on here, though, that girls spend more time on social media, with TikTok and YouTube being the most prevalent, and that boys spend a little less time, but still on those two platforms the most. They did not include gaming in this study, but only the top 5 social media sources. So those numbers continue to change. They don't include the gaming platforms that are out there. This is just on the top 5 social media apps that are out there. So you get a kind of an idea where they're spending their time in those 4 hours a day or more. So how did we get to this subject? Well, I'm going to pause for a second. I was at a Rotary International Convention in 2021, I guess it was, I think it's 2021, down in Houston, Texas, and there was a group that was there called A21, who's one of our partners that's come in and helped us many times. So if you've been to some of our programs in the past, we work very closely with several NGOs. So today you're going to hear from Anti-Trafficking International, but Molly Thorson with A21 was there, and they showed this next video, which really caught my attention and helped me understand what this sextortion thing is that we hear about. And I wanted to kind of start this off to set the stage of why this is so important, give a little bit more information about it. So hopefully this all works, and it will show the video properly if I go pull it over here. So hang tight when I bring this up. So.
Sorry.
So test papers from last week, some of them good, some of them not so good. I think we all need to improve before the real thing in a couple of weeks. Thank you. That was excellent. That was all right. Have a look at comments on there. That needs work, as does that. That was okay. Nelson, I don't know what's going on here. Can you see me after the lesson, please? That was excellent. Good. Just comments on that. I think that needs work. That was excellent. Okay, so characterization and criticism for next week, please, everyone. Nelson. Nelson.
Use your hands. What are you doing? You have one job. Yes, get stuck in there. Joe.
So that video really drives home why we're here tonight, to really talk about trafficking and talk about sextortion and what happens. When that video was first shown to me, I talked to the gal that showed it to us afterward, and she said, you know, the rest of the story there, that, of course, now why is it playing the next video? Hang on, hold the phone. I don't know what it's doing now.
You know,
Go away. Why does it want to be chatty with me? Oh, come on. Hang on. Technical difficulties over here. We'll get there. This is the joys of everything. So hang tight. I'll come back to it. And there you guys all are. Okay. So is that when the first time I saw that, I talked to the gal that did the screening down in Texas. She said the rest of the story, there's one, that is a true story. Two, the extorter didn't want money. What he wanted was pictures of that boy's little sister, of his little sister, wanted naked pictures. And when he wouldn't give those to him, that's when he actually dispersed all of those images and that video to his school population, and that young man committed suicide. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. This is a truly important conversation to understand more about, so that we can prevent that from happening to any of our students here in Fauquier County. So looking at, we're going to walk through some different terminology that I think is important to have as we're walking through. So I'll say, I found a quote that I thought was important, that never before has it been easier for predators to make contact with children and teenagers while avoiding physical contact. They identify their potential victims and establish a relationship of trust with the sole purpose of exploiting them. This process of recruitment can be a stepping stone to trafficking exploitation. This quote was actually from 2018 from the UN, whatever this is, the UN document there. So I just thought that was a really important one to be keeping in mind. And that was saying never before it's been easier for a perpetrator to be able to connect with kids. Think about where we are in 2024. So it's even more easily accessible. So some terminology that you're going to hear tonight from our presenters is online sexual exploitation, the persuading of a minor, someone under the age of 18, to create child sexual abuse materials. You'll hear CSAM. That is what child sexual abuse materials are. The vernacular that many of us have used in the past is saying child porn. That's not what it, like, that's not using those types of words going forward, but calling it CSAM, or the child sexual abuse materials. These can be videos or images of themselves or participating in live stream videos, whether it was recorded or not. Often those perpetrators will manipulate the child, first building an emotional connection and relationship with the child to gain trust with the goal of sexual exploitation. You just saw that in that video of that offender manipulating, building a relationship of trust. Oh, I'll send you the cute little picture of my shoulder. Oh, we'll give you the little cutesy face saying, now show me yours. It's your turn. So it's that type of a process. The term sextortion you'll hear a lot. That's blackmailing someone to get them to create or share images or videos of themselves, what we just saw. Enticement, you'll hear about that, which is the persuading of a child to engage in a sexual act. I will say that the possession, distribution, and receipt of child sexual abuse materials, CSAM, possessing, receiving, or distributing those CSAM images, whether they're obtained by manipulation or not. So maybe it really was a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but now they've disseminated it out, can result in harm to a child featured in the CSAM materials. So I know that our FBI agents will talk about that tonight as well. So just so we have that base to start from. Some red flags to be looking for. This gives some good information, some general red flags. One is they're wanting to earn trust. They start talking and saying, oh, you're only 13. I thought you were 16 or 17. The reality up there, I love this, the reality that this guy is 37 years old, but he's saying that he's 17. So, hey, oh, I thought you were a little bit older, closer to my age, not so young. So they want to earn that trust. They start asking for personal information. Do you go to the school? Where do you go to school? Is it the one by the baseball field? Start asking for more information. But yet they don't reply to the same types of questions. Well, what school do you go to? Just keep changing the subject as they go through. They then make you feel pressured to send something that makes you feel uncomfortable. So think that the video we just saw, he felt pressured into sending the picture of him, that first one, that next thing, pressured into it just out of that obligation, because now she's shown a little something, so now maybe he should too. So that making them feel uncomfortable in this. And then from there, kind of working their way through, asking questions about, where they go to school again, what they're wearing, looking for clues that way, kind of all the way through this process. And I know that others will cover this, so I'm not going to cover it in depth, but all the way through the process of just that very simple, we're now 1, 2, 3 slides through. Now we're showing pictures. Chances are this picture is not really him, right? That he's not really a 17-year-old boy. We saw earlier, this is a 37-year-old man that's now wanting to get to know this girl, all cutesy. So that's 4 slides, the 5th page here, and now they're wanting to say, hey, can you send me pictures? Just how quick it goes from just meeting the person to now sending pictures, goes super, super fast. So things to think about, and when we talk to kids about this and students about is, one, we tell them always speak up to a trusted adult. Some things to do is have a trusted adult in your life, whether it's a teacher or a parent, a neighbor, a friend's parent, a pastor, somebody that they can reach out to, that they can say, here's what's happening to me. We tell them don't share or post any personal information online, your school, your phone number, your address, and so on. I mean, sadly, kids do this and they just don't think about it because they think everybody in their social media world is safe. Well, we know that perpetrators infiltrate and be able to get into that personal circle. And now you've shared with them where you go to school, where you might live, and so on. So making sure that you're not posting that kind of personal information out there. We encourage students to ask themselves before they hit send, would it be okay if everyone at my school saw this picture? And we tell them, think of that before you send it, not after, because once that toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in. So would it be okay if everybody saw this? Would it be okay if my parents or my grandparents saw this picture, this video before it gets out there? We remind them that everything that they post online can never really be fully deleted. Somebody can screenshot that. Screenshots can be shared over and over, and it's hard to be able to pull all of that down. There's some great resources out there from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that can pull a lot of it, but they can't get all of it. So we tell people, don't just send that stuff, even if it's your boyfriend that you know or girlfriend that you know, still don't do it because you just don't know who's going to hold on to that and what's going to happen to it. We tell people not to post emotional posts. So whether you're sad or you're upset at your parents or you're whatever's going on, don't post an emotional post requesting help or hoping hoping for a thing or saying that you're wanting a specific item, because perpetrators are filtering, looking for those types of things. So they're just looking for, how can I penetrate and get into that person's life to be able to start that grooming process? So whether it's grooming for sex trafficking or it's grooming for sextortion, they're just looking for a way to be able to build that bond and to fill that void. So making sure that you're not posting those types of things. We tell them only communicate with people that they know, people that they've actually met in real life. That's hard for kids today because so many kids today feel this need to have so many more friends. And they assume that because this person's friends with this other friend of theirs, that they are okay being friends back with them. Well, if you haven't actually met that person, does your friend really know them? Probably not. Maybe not. But you need to make sure that you've actually have you shook their hand, have you looked them in the eyeball, do you know this is a real human being that you can trust with your inner circle, your inner life, information about your family and things that get out there. So making sure that you've actually known that person. We remind them to block anyone who makes them feel uncomfortable. If someone has repeated uninvited communication, block them. Nobody says that you have to be nice to people online when it comes to your safety. Block them. It's okay. Doesn't mean that you're being rude. You're just protecting yourself. We tell them to avoid posting any identifiable information. Again, school, where you like wearing your name on your shirt, or where you're going to school, your first day of school, things like that, that they can start figuring out how to get to you and where to find you in real life. We remind them, and I remind you guys as well as parents, is to adjust your privacy setting on all of your social media, making sure that it's only friends that you know, not public information that's out there. I know that when we get to it, Detective Shaw will talk about the need to be able to turn off the meta files in the back of your pictures so that they're also not being able to find out where was that picture taken, where were they at, where do they live, especially if it's a picture at home. They can zero in to know exactly where you are just based on that metadata that's out there. Remind folks, including adults, that friends online can be fake. Pictures can be brought in, can be distorted. AI now makes it even harder to be able to identify this and to be able to know who's real, who's not real. So again, only if you've met them in real life, you've got to be able to only friend them if you've actually met them. And we also tell them that they need to tell someone that they trust if they receive a photo that includes unwanted or uninvited content. Or if you send something that you're like, I shouldn't have sent that to this person, that you realize after you hit send that you didn't really want to send that to them, you need to tell a trusted adult as soon as you can, so they can start the process to be able to help you, but to be able to look at it and be able to treat and to be able to help that student, because they're a victim in all of this. So making sure that they know that they can get help and they won't be judged for it. So some characteristics of a suspected offender: it can be anyone, quite frankly, but most offenders, when you get into the sextortion ring, are typically male, but they often may pose as a female, like you saw here in the ones that we saw the pictures there, that there was a male, the video as well was a male posing as a female. They usually pretend that they're closer to their victim's age, rather than being the 50-year-old guy or the 45-year-old guy or whatever it is. They'll pretend to be a teenager with them to be able to earn that trust. They oftentimes use multiple online identities. So you think about that video at the end where they showed the guy spinning his wedding ring and he was looking at all of his different online profiles and pictures and identities that he had out there. That's pretty common. They oftentimes will target multiple children on multiple platforms. So they're not just focused on one. They're running, this is a business for them, they're running the business. You can walk through each of these other ones, but I think it's really important to understand that the characteristics of a suspected offender could be almost anyone, which is why you have to be really, really careful. So when I say that could be anyone, it could be that female friend that you just picked up on Facebook or on Instagram or on Snap. You have to have that radar up. It's so, so important. So with that, our first speaker that I'm going to introduce tonight is Detective Candace Shaw. So Candace, you can come off mute while I introduce you here. Candace is a senior detective here in Fauquier County at the Sheriff's Office. She's been a great partner of ours for the last several years. She started her career in the Adult Detention Center and worked her way through different divisions within the office. She's been a detective assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division for the past 10 years. And Detective Shaw is a child forensic interviewer and handles most of the child and adult sexual abuse and physical abuse cases within Fauquier County. Detective Shaw also assists with the FBI Child Exploitation Task Force as a member of the Internet Crimes Against Children, ICAC, task force through the Virginia State Police. We are so fortunate to have time with Candace tonight that she was able to carve out some for us. So welcome, Candace.
Thank you. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
We got you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys hopping on here tonight. Looks like we have about 23 people. That's awesome. So like she said, I work for the Sheriff's Office. I've been there quite some time, so I work a lot of these cases. So in Fauquier County, we do have sextortion happening. It's happening pretty often. There's usually two types of sextortion. There's sextortion where they want you to send more images, and then there's sextortion where they want some type of monetary financial thing. We do see both of them. Mostly we see the financial cases recently, but we do still get people that are trying to sextort people just for more images. And we see that amongst our teens, mostly in school, where they're in a relationship and they get some pictures and they want more pictures, and then they threaten to share their images if they don't get more pictures. So we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight and hopefully educate you guys. And if you guys have questions, please jump on and write in that question and answer section. This is my first time doing a webinar, so this is kind of exciting. So like we talked about, sextortion can start on any application or any type of gaming platform. If you have an Xbox, a Oculus, MetaQuest headset, PlayStation, all those things, your tablet, anywhere where you can download, where you can have games, where you can interact with one-on-one or have some type of conversation or communication between two people. A lot of times these people claim that they may have revealing pictures of you in the financial sextortion cases we work. You may get an email or some type of message saying that I have images of you, and in reality they don't. And a lot of the adults will then send money, usually gift cards of some sort, to these people to try to prevent their images from being released. They use threats of gifts. They try to give you gifts. They flattery, lies. There's lots of methods. You can go ahead and go to the next screen. So usually how it works is after they get one or more pictures of you, they threaten to publish the content or try to make you have fear, shame, confusion, especially with children that don't understand what's happening to them. And they're embarrassed and they don't really want to ask for help, and the abuse continues. So caregivers and the children should know and understand how this crime occurs, and they should be able to openly discuss it. So as parents, this is something that absolutely needs to be talked about at a very young age. Kids are getting cell phones very young. They are on the bus with children. Even though you think your child doesn't have a cell phone or has access to the internet, they're on the bus with kids and friends that are sharing their devices with them. So they need to understand the dangers and the safety and what they should and shouldn't do when they're on the bus with their friend, or if they come across something that's inappropriate. You can go to the next slide. So this is the financial sextortion. We've had an increase of that, especially amongst our teenage boys. So we're finding that a lot of this is coming from the Ivory Coast in Africa. It's a big scam where they go on social media, they see these teenage boys, and they present themselves as a very attractive woman, and they start talking to them just like the video you saw initially. And then as they build their trust, then they start sending them pictures to make them feel like they're communicating with a younger person, and then they end up getting them to send them images and then request money. And a lot of kids don't have money, so they keep sending more pictures to think that they're going to ward off these offenders, but they just don't go away. So the best thing we can do is to stop all communication with them. Do not send them any money. Save whatever information you have and contact the sheriff's office immediately. You can go to the next slide. So this is how to deal with sextortion. Stop all communication immediately, never comply with their requests, don't send any pictures, videos, and absolutely do not send them any money. Money is not going to make them go away. Keep all the evidence, keep the names, the usernames, whatever phone numbers we're communicating with you. Do not delete anything, because that's evidence that we can then use to try to help go backwards and try to figure out who these people were. And you need to report it. This is unfortunately very underreported, I believe, because kids are embarrassed. They don't want to tell their parents. They think they can handle it on their own until it gets to a point where it's really bad. And some kids don't ever tell their parents, and they just delete all the information and move on. But we need to try to go back and get as much information we can on these people, so the federal partners that have, you know, the resources to go overseas can act and stop these people, because they're just preying on our children, and it's really unfortunate. So you can see that's our sheriff's office number, 347-3300. That's our non-emergency number. You can call it at any time. You can also go on our website. We have a crime reporting report on our website, or you can go to the FBI tip line. Or you can also go to NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Their website is fabulous for tons of resources on how to protect your kids and what to do if something like this happens online. You can go to the next slide. So what can you guys do as parents? You have to be monitoring your child's online activity, and I cannot stress that enough. I work so many cases, and most of them all involve a cell phone or some type of electronic device. When I download the device and I'm going through the device because a crime has happened, I usually will communicate with the parents about, well, have you been going through their phone? Do you look at their stuff? And they all tell me, no, you know, my son has an expectation of privacy. I don't want to look at his stuff, but that's not the case. You're the parent. You have to be monitoring that these kids are not mature enough to make these, you know, online decisions that protect them. They sometimes are silly and they make decisions they shouldn't make. So you need to know what apps are on their phone, who they're talking to, what they're doing. So for instance, Snapchat is a huge one. We deal with that on a daily basis at the sheriff's office. Some crimes are always happening within Snapchat, where there's threats at school and so people are sending messages, or there's a fight at school. They filmed it on Snapchat and they're sharing it with all their friends, and we have to get that evidence. Seems like Snapchat's involved with everything. Not that Snapchat's a horrible app, because there are some benefits to it, and you know, social media is important these days, because that's how everything is done, is on social media. But monitoring your kid's Snapchat is very important, knowing who they're friends with, because friends now accept anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter if they know them or don't know them. It's like a social status to have as many friends and as many people following you, even though they don't know them. So for instance, when my son was younger and he really wanted Snapchat, I was absolutely against it. I said, nope, you're not having Snapchat. Nope, nope, nope. I knew his passwords to all of his devices. And I would find that he would download Snapchat, use it, and then delete it off of his phone. So I wouldn't know he was using it. Well, I ended up finding out. So at that point, I just ended up kind of like giving in, and I allowed him to have a Snapchat, as long as I was also on Snapchat and his friend, and I was friends with a lot of his friends, so I could see what they were all doing. It's been great. Even now that he's 19, I unfortunately still see what all of his friends are doing, and they still keep up with me. So it's kind of nice. But knowing their passwords too, that I can't stress that enough either. You have to know the passwords to all of their devices, all of their accounts. You need to be going in there. And that was a rule in my house. If I didn't know your password, or if I picked up your phone and I tried your password and it didn't work, then that phone was now mine. So you need to be able to access their devices, probably when they're sleeping and they don't know you're looking at them, just so you can spot check them and make sure you know what's going on. Check their pictures, check their messages, check their emails, check their DMs on all their accounts. So Snapchat, like I said, that's a very important one. There is a section on Snapchat. It's called, so if you go on, I'll show you on my phone. Let me see if this will work here. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if you go on Snapchat and you can see all your pictures, at the very top, if you scroll over, there's a thing that says My Eyes Only. That's too bright. Anyway, on My Eyes Only, you're required to put a password in to see any of those pictures that are stored there. And so many parents have no idea that that section of Snapchat even exists. We did not learn about it until probably a couple of years ago, that you could go over there, and that's where all the good pictures are that they shouldn't have on their phone, and all the things they're doing that they don't want you to know. It's all hidden in the For My Eyes Only portion of Snapchat. I do know Apple also has come out with something new with their images, where you can go down and you can set it so you can hide images under the settings. I'm not familiar a lot with Apple, but I do know that that's an option that kids can set up. So definitely make sure you know what apps and what settings they have on their phone. Instagram, that's so popular. That's all the kids talk to people these days, is everything's on Instagram. Just make sure you're monitoring their DMs and all the messages they get. I did just see something recently where they're trying to pass something where you have to give parental permission to like use Instagram, which I think would be great. I think that should be for all apps. Discord is a huge app that teens are using now, especially the boys that are gaming. It's like a streaming app where you can talk about all sorts of games and computer games and video games and all sorts of stuff. And you can make these like private chat rooms where you can invite your friends, talk about different things. I've seen several cases on Discord where predators are lurking in those chat rooms and they start talking to somebody and then they get them to come out of Discord and move on to Snapchat or move on to another application where they can communicate directly with that kid. Omegle, I need to take that off because luckily they have deleted that page. That page was horrible. It was basically like chat roulette or video roulette. You would literally log on and then you just pick like your city or your town and you just randomly pairs you with strangers and you can either text back and forth on the computer or you can do video chatting. And so many children were victimized on there because they would be talking to that individual online on a video chat, someone they didn't know, and then before you know it, they're convincing that child to show them some part of their body, and the child, unbeknownst to them, the perpetrator is on the other end screen recording the whole thing, and then turns into something similar to sextortion where they're then sending the child like their images, and if they don't comply with sending more images or money, that they're going to share their images. So that's a horrible website, and I'm really glad that it's down. Like I said, know your password. The iPhone recently has the deleted and the hidden images. And talk to your children. That's the most important thing that I hope everybody takes away, is being able to communicate with your children, making them feel comfortable coming to you. That's huge. If they don't feel comfortable coming to you, they're not going to, and they're going to either not tell you, or it's just they need to be able to talk to their parents about what's going on the internet. And a lot of kids are embarrassed about some of this stuff. Go to the next slide. So I do have a screenshot of it. So that's the Snapchat. So that's what it looks like. If you go into your Snapchat, at the top, it has snaps and it has stories and it has the camera roll. The very end, you don't even see it up there. You got to slide all the way over. You'll see the For My Eyes Only, and it requires a 4-digit password to get into that section. If you go there and it's asking you for a 4-digit password, that means your child has already set that up. On mine, it says create an account because I don't have the For My Eyes Only. Another one is that calculator app. So if you look at that, that's on Apple. Do you know which one is the calculator? It looks like they all are, but one of them, if you click on them, it presents you with a password, and it's actually an app to hide photographs on their cell phone. So as you're going through their phone to make sure there's something on it, it looks like a regular calculator. So make sure you click on some of those apps to make sure they are what they are, because some of them are used just to hide images. Go to the next one. So what can kids do to prevent sextortion? Never respond to strangers that you don't know that are talking to you. Unfortunately, that's extremely difficult in this day and age because kids want to have friends and they want to friend everybody. I have an undercover Instagram page that I use to talk to people online that shouldn't be talking to children. And in that Instagram, I have friended so many children to make myself look like a child because I pose as a 13-year-old girl. And so I just went on and I actually went to my son when he was much younger and friended him and some of his friends. And then before you know it, I was friending all sorts of people, and I'm still 13 and haven't really grown. People don't realize that yet. And I'm still friending more people and more kids, and kids just accept me. They've never met me. They have no idea. Nobody even sends me a message like, who are you? I've never seen you before. What school do you go to? Nothing. I have so many friends and no one's asked a single question or batted an eye of who I was. So talk to your children about accepting people that they know. Be skeptical. Just because they're a really cute little girl does not mean that's who they are. They could be a 50-year-old man. Be skeptical when strangers compliment them online. That's really, really big. That's how they gain your trust, is they see some girl who may be having some issues with self-confidence and knows that they're having struggles at home with their mom and dad or whatever, because it's on their social media. And then they tell them all the things they want to hear to make them believe that this person's going to be there for them and, you know, make their life great. So be suspicious if they ask you to move from one platform to another. So if you're on like Xbox and you're having a conversation and you're gaming and they say, hey, do you have Snapchat? Let's go to Snapchat. Be suspicious of that. Usually they want to do that because they have other intentions. Never turn your camera on for strangers. Keep your social media accounts private. Lock them down so people can't just go online and type in your name and see everything that's going on in your life. Make sure everything is private. Keep your GPS and your location off, like she talked about earlier with the pictures. So there's XF data in the back. I mean, you can go to your pictures right now on Instagram, on your iPhone or your Android, and click more information, and it'll take you and it'll show you exactly the location, sometimes down to a pinpoint on a map of where that photograph was taken. So make sure your GPS is off. Make sure you know if your phone has that options or not. If sextortion has already happened to you, then you need to tell a safe, trusted adult. You can go to your school counselor, you can talk to your teacher, you can call the sheriff's office and talk to me. While it can be embarrassing, getting help will make you feel better, and it will also help us try to identify this potential person. So you can go to the next one. So Together for a Safer Internet. Internet Safety Day is coming up soon, where they promote internet safety. So this is a great opportunity to talk about that, because that's what time of the month it is in February. I have a really good video that's really cute about a cat, and it's a really great way to start that conversation, especially with the younger kids, because unfortunately you need to talk to them as young as you can. I work cases where children are sexually offending on other children, and when I talk to them, they are 6 and 7 years old, and they have told me that they've seen videos. They picked up their mom or dad's phone, and there was inappropriate videos that they were able to access, and they've seen pornography at a very, very, very young age. It's very sad because it's happening younger and younger, because people are allowing their children just to use their phones or use the internet without proper supervision. So I think that's about it. Do you want to play the video? You're muted still.
Hang on, getting to the video. Nothing is as smooth as I want it to be. I want this one. Nope, I want this one.
Okay, so you did a thing. You sent a picture of yourself with no clothes on. Something you thought wouldn't be shared. And in a polite society, cats wear clothes, right? Anyway, seemed like a good idea at the time, but now things have gone wrong, terribly wrong. Maybe you shared the picture with someone you loved and trusted, but after a while, things weren't so friendly. Or they said they'd help you become a star. They just wanted to use you. Or maybe you met someone online and they really seemed to understand you, but then it got weird. And it turned out to be someone totally different. Now the person you shared the pic with is demanding more and threatening to tell. That's sextortion. Yep, that's a thing. The perpetrator relies on you feeling ashamed and keeping quiet. But they are the ones who should be ashamed. What they are doing is wrong. And it's never too late to find your voice to ask for help, or too early to reach out to your friends to tell them you'll be there no matter what. In fact, you can stop sextortion before it starts by talking about it now. With support, you can do anything, and you can focus on the important business of being cats. So tell your closest friends today you've got their back no matter what.
Okay, I love that video.
It's a great video. It's just really cute, and it's really easy to show that to your kids and like talk about it. I mean, just being open and honest about what's going on in the world when it comes to this type of stuff is very important. I don't know if we can share the link to that video and like maybe the Q&A so people can copy it and then have it if they want to use it later. But
Yeah,
I
I was just
appreciate
gonna say, if you could put it in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'll put it in there when we go to Q&A, because otherwise you're going to see me as I'm like pulling back and forth since I'm sharing my screen. But I'll do it when we get to it. It's also out on our Fauquier Anti-Sex Trafficking Alliance Facebook page. But I'll put it there when we get there.
There are also other videos on YouTube. I mean, YouTube has a plethora of educational things that are very helpful for this kind of stuff. I'm sure there's more than just the cat video, but I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you guys. And please list any of your questions if you have any.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So up next, we have from the FBI, bringing in our partner, Kathleen Calloway. She's been with the FBI for over 10 years and has been an FBI special agent for 5. She served as an analyst in the FBI's International Operations Division located at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. before becoming a special agent. As an agent, she was first stationed in the Philadelphia field office before transferring to the Washington field office. Kathleen is currently assigned to the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force, whose mission is to combat the proliferation of child pornography and the sexual exploitation of children, and to identify, investigate, and prosecute subjects of crimes that involve the victimization of children. Kathleen holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Intelligent Analysis and Biology from James Madison University, and a Master in Science and Strategic from Strategic Intelligence from the National, and I can't read the rest of it because it is hidden right now, from the National Intelligence University. So with that, welcome, Kathleen. Hopefully you're off mute.
Thank you. Yes, a mouthful, I know. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. This was I had a thing hiding it, and I couldn't get past it. So go.
Thank you guys for being here. I know the webinar is at least new for me, so I appreciate everyone and appreciate you guys holding on while we had some issues at the beginning. So thank you. Sextortion is insanely common, and I want to make a point to everyone that this not only happens to kids, but it also happens to adults. We have so many cases where they contact us and our local law enforcement partners saying, hey, this happened to me, and it'll be a 40-year-old person. So I want to kind of take away that stigma that it only happens to kids and that, oh my gosh, they're so stupid for this happening to them. It is literally just the new Nigerian prince scandal, but targeting those who are under 18. This stat is a little old, so I'm sure it's much more common now, but 1 in 4 victims were under the age of 13 when this occurred, and 2 in 3 were threatened before the age of 18. At WFO, for us, which is Northern Virginia and DC, we get at least 5 to 15 tips of these a day. A week. And that does not include the local law enforcement getting the tips. That does not include any other areas in Virginia. That is just Northern Virginia, which includes Fauquier and the DC area. You can go to the next slide. So we saw the video earlier, and that was it. This sextortion can happen insanely fast. I mean, this chat excerpt that you see was an actual case. And in 2 seconds, you can see where they went from, hey, do you think I'm sexy? Yeah, you're gorgeous. Hey, here's me topless. And then they send a pic, and it just escalates from there. So it can happen within mere minutes of a day. So you can see exactly how many individuals that a subject can target very quickly. Next. So like we said earlier, I won't hash on too many or repeat too many things, but it's usually an older guy. We've seen a lot of these coming from Nigeria, and they target young boys. We have had some success. I know that this last summer in a June-ish timeframe, we actually went out, the FBI LEGAT team in Nigeria went out with the local law enforcement from Nigeria and rounded up a few of the major key players that were targeting kids and producing CSAM. So we are working on targeting these people, but it is very difficult, especially those who are overseas. They always ask for money, never give them money. It never stops. You can hit the next slide. So here's actually an individual that we had. He was very lucky enough to have uploaded his actual passport to the application. They like I said, they target the individuals, and the reason that the government has really gotten involved is that there's been a large number of individuals who have committed suicide because unfortunately they see that as the only way out. And that's why we're trying to proactively reach out to people and get them to have a trusted adult so that that is not the only option. Go ahead. So this is an individual, Filippo Parlio Greco, was actually a subject who lived here in Fauquier County. He lived in Warrenton, and he was targeting individuals and having them produce CSAM for his own private collection. So he actually collected all these images and then would trade with other subjects. Unfortunately, a lot of the subjects within the child pornography arena treat it kind of like baseball cards, where if you have original material, it's more valued and they will trade it amongst each other. And this is exactly what he was doing. Though we worked with our local law enforcement to apprehend him, but this just goes to show you that it's not just people who are sitting overseas. This actually occurs with subjects who live here in the Fauquier area. And he actually is serving time in jail right now for producing child pornography, so we were able to apprehend him. You can go next. So here's a few more details about the case. He exploited 14 minors, some of them as young as 11 years old, and these were all over the United States that he did this. He made false promises. He pretended to be a little girl to gain their trust, and sometimes he pretended to be a little boy, just so that he could kind of talk to them, get to know them a little bit, gain their trust, and then they would exchange illicit material. Like I said, he's currently in jail. He'll be there for 31 years. I believe he got sentenced last year. And all of these images that are produced are stored with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, which Detective Shaw mentioned earlier. Just to give you a little background on NCMEC, they're the repository for every image that is ever created of CSAM that has been identified. And they are the ones who hold the database. So if an image is ever found again, they are the ones who can notify the individual should they want to be notified. Go ahead. So these were all of the victims here in the US. Like I said, it was all over the place, and he actually lived here in Warrenton. Go ahead. So on the flip side, I just talked about a subject. This is a victim that lived here in Fauquier County. She was one of, oh my gosh, so many. There was a guy living in the United Kingdom, and he pretended to be another minor. And because a little girl came forward and said, hey, this is what's happening to me. This guy's targeting me. Here's the accounts. We were actually able to identify who he was, apprehend him. We worked with our overseas partners and get him. And he, again, was chatting with, oh my gosh, I think it was hundreds. I think there was over 114 confirmed victims all over the world that he was chatting with and then creating this CSAM material. You can go ahead. So this is the map of all the individuals that we know of that he was chatting with and had created the illicit material. I just like the map because it kind of shows you, it really hits home on the sheer number that they're able to reach out to and communicate with and then create all of this CSAM. Go ahead. So these are the two people. When I show this to the kids, they're always grossed out. They're like, ew, ew. But I try and hone in on the fact that this is someone that you could be talking to. You might think it's someone that goes to your school. You might think it's just the pretty girl down the street that you haven't met. But in reality, it could be these two individuals. And you would never know because anyone can be anyone on the internet. Go ahead. So this video,
go ahead.
yes. So this video kind of, it's Generally, I would suggest it for older kids. The cat video is much better for younger individuals. This video kind of just makes light of the situation and allows you to show it to your kids and then just start a conversation. The whole purpose of this is to start a conversation so that your kids know that they can come and talk to you about this and that it's not a taboo subject.
This
You
is
can
one of
play
my
it
favorite
immediately.
videos too. It's a blast.
Being a teenager is an adventure, and there are many challenges along the way. Like sextortion.
What's sextortion?
It's when someone who you just met online tricks you into sending naked pictures or videos of yourself and threatens to send them to your friends and family unless you pay or send more nudes. It's like extortion, but with sex at the beginning. Sextortion.
Major bummer.
It's normal to want to explore your sexuality. You meet a nice young lady online, things are getting a little... Ugh. And she asks you to send a nude. Well, you could send one of yourself. What's going on in there? Or you could send a naked mole rat. Long, veiny, and fleshy, the naked mole rat, you can call him Willie, looks a lot like that picture you were just about to send, except it's got 2 beady little eyes and 4 sharp little teeth at the tip. Oh, and it won't lead to sextortion.
So, the next time someone you just met online asks you for a nude, don't get sextorted. Send a naked mole rat instead.
So like I said,
I like that one.
Yes, the video is very entertaining. I like that video because it kind of makes light of the situation and allows you to talk to your kids in a lighthearted situation and just kind of break the ice. One caveat, we tell you, do not continue the conversation. So if someone asks for nudes, immediately block them. Like Detective Shaw said, do not delete everything, do not delete anything, keep it so that we can use that to identify the person. But this is merely a tool. But yes, do not engage with the subject.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight. We'll come back for doing some Q&A afterwards. So next up is Erin. Erin can come off mute. Erin Fisher is a 1998 graduate of the Columbus School of Law at the Catholic University of America. She has a BS in criminology from Penn State University and spent 22 years in academia serving Northern Virginia and the surrounding DC communities. And today she's proud to serve as the executive director of Just Ask Prevention for Anti-Trafficking International. Erin believes that education equals empowerment, and she looks forward to building relationships with community organizations and school districts around the globe to make human trafficking prevention education available to everyone. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Anti-Trafficking International is an NGO that grew out of the Northern Virginia area, and we're committed to stopping human trafficking through and exploitation before it starts. And that's done through prevention and awareness programs. So we offer curriculum, we have presentations that we do all over the world, and really work with communities very carefully to build an awareness and understanding as to what human trafficking is. So we listened to an incredibly important piece of the exploitation of children in the sextortion presentations that were done, and you'll see a lot of overlap here. The difference between what was just talked about in human trafficking is that human trafficking is generally more something that's done in person, but it's a segue and can be a segue from sextortion as a crime beginning as sextortion and leading into human trafficking. So the general definition of human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person to engage in commercial sex and forced labor. So that can happen a lot of different ways depending on the person and their vulnerabilities. And we'll get into looking at what exactly are the vulnerabilities, what's the methodology, and what are some things for you as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator, as just a neighbor to be able to look out for. Today was a very big day on Capitol Hill for those of you who may follow politics. The Senate Judiciary Committee held a hearing with CEOs from big tech companies. I think it's really important to let you know that it was the first time I think I've ever seen a bipartisan group agree on just absolutely everything. Some of the CEOs from big tech had to be subpoenaed to show up and testify, which kind of said a lot about their commitment to being very forthright about what's going on online. But I wanted to just take the opportunity, the irony that it would hit on today, but take the opportunity to reach out to Senators Kaine and Warner and let them know that you're behind this bill. There really is 100% agreement in passing some legislation that protects our kids online. One of the most shocking statistics that was brought up by Senator Blackburn was, according to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, a child is sold for sex every 2 minutes in the United States. Now that can happen in person, it can happen online. We know that COVID changed the course of how we interact with each other. And it certainly did nothing but good things for the human trafficking industry, because the human trafficking industry grew and the traffickers learned how to master social media and how to connect with people in various forms that we didn't use before. Imagine think back to 5 years ago. We weren't having webinars, and a few of us had said, this is the first time we've been on a webinar to present, right? That wasn't happening in normal society 5 years ago. It's a completely different place, and our kids are the ones that are mastering this before we can even master it. So it's a tricky time to be a parent, but we have to be aware. So thank you for being here to be aware and help the kids in your life. So human trafficking is the second largest enterprise in the world. In 2022, it was generating over $150 billion a year. That statistic is probably much higher now. And we know that from projections that human trafficking will exceed the drug trafficking trade, and in part because the product of human trafficking can be used over and over and over again. We had cases that law enforcement that we work with have shared. In one case, a local case in the Northern Virginia, DC area, where girls were being trafficked after school, and 4 days a week for 4 hours each day, they were brought to a hotel and serviced 8 men apiece. So that was one every 30 minutes. And no one expected it because it was during school. It was during those hours after school where you think you're in a social club or you're somewhere where it is, you wouldn't suspect anything nefarious going on. So it's something that we really have to pay attention to and talk about with our kids. Traffickers use many methods like social media and online forums to groom and trap victims through their force, fraud, and coercion. You can go ahead and change this slide, Amelia. Thank you. Okay, so who's being targeted? Really, anybody can be targeted. It's all about accessibility, suggestibility, and vulnerability. So when we talk about people spending a lot of time online, it's a lot of accessibility, right, with the amount of time that we spend. And sex is such a normalized thing to talk about nowadays. I remember when I was growing up, I'm sure most of you who are parents, those were not common topics that we would discuss, but now it's normalized, and it's easy to normalize hypersexuality in the minds of teens because they're exposed to so much more. Everybody has vulnerabilities, so suggesting certain things that maybe make a person connect a little bit more with the vulnerability of another, that is one of the trapping methods that we'll talk about in just a bit. Vulnerabilities can include just personality, a generally shy person, people who have trouble fitting in. If there's economic concerns in the family, mental health issues, substance abuse problems, and coming from some sort of dysfunctional home. We all are dysfunctional. I'm not pointing fingers at all. Everybody has some dysfunction, but foster kids who are in the foster care system are tend to be a little more susceptible. Or if there's some family crisis going on, they can be kids can be a little more susceptible because they're a little bit more vulnerable. We all have the vulnerabilities, which makes it even a little harder to teach your kids about it. The idea is you teach your kids to share their vulnerabilities and maybe talk more openly with safe people that they know, as opposed to sharing it with people who they don't know. All right, Amelia, ready for slide 2. So traffickers scout, manipulate, and trap their victims. So by scouting, we're talking about just what we were talking about, the sextortion, using social media to make a connection with somebody, going to shopping malls. Traffickers have scouts that will look for people who show signs of vulnerabilities, not necessarily having self-confidence, looking down, being alone, shy, those types of things. Shopping malls, bus stops, in school, and through friends. So peer-to-peer trafficking is a real thing. Since 2020, familial trafficking has been on the rise, and gang control trafficking, especially in larger urban areas, especially like the DC area, is fairly prevalent. Traffickers like to relate to young people and to make sure that they build this relation that kind of seems too good to be true. They pretend to be boyfriends or girlfriends. Some of the scouts, some of the people that are bringing people into this realm of trafficking without them knowing it can be girls that are being recruited by gangs. We see a lot of gang trafficking that use girls to befriend other girls and bring them in, but it can be the opposite. Buying presents, treating them well, making them feel special and listened to. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. If that's not being done at home or within a friends group, that feels good. And that's an easy way to manipulate and trap somebody. Traffickers are liars. They will say what they need to say in order to gain the trust of a potential victim. The trapping occurs when traffickers trick or control young people into staying in the lifestyle. They have false promises of love. They may be using drugs as an exchange, violence or threats of violence. We heard a number of examples of people who are exploited, children who are exploited especially, are ashamed and feel like they were the ones doing something wrong, and they don't want to speak up, and they don't feel safe in being able to report it. I think with both the sheriff's office and the FBI speakers said is, those are hard conversations to have, but to open up that line of communication and build trust with your children and with children who may not be your own, but you have important relationships. We always promote this idea of 3 to succeed at ATI. Find 3 trusted adults that talk to your child about finding 3 trusted adults that they can go to no matter what, that they can say something that isn't necessarily going to be very comfortable, but they can rely on being heard and seen and helped if they're in any danger. You can go ahead and turn the slide. So talked about NCMEC, which is such an amazing organization, and we talk about this idea of accessibility. I found these statistics to be really just shocking because in a time period of 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, the numbers of online enticement, which is one avenue that traffickers will use, increased so much. So if you look at just the 3 that I've highlighted, instances of the possession, manufacturing, or distribution of child pornography in 2020, there were 21 plus million reports. In 2 years, that increased to 31 million. Online enticement of children for sexual acts, requesting a child to do something online that's sexually explicit, went from 37,000 to 80,000 requests. An unsolicited obscene material sent to a child. I talked a little bit about sharing those pictures. That went from 3,500 to 35,000. It's just an incredible jump. It shows not only how savvy people have gotten in those 2 years, it also shows how much more we're using social media to communicate and how much more people are entrenched in that. There's a case that I was familiar with after presenting in Illinois a few months ago, and it was a high school in a fairly large area, and 2 kids that had been dating for a long time broke up, and the boyfriend was just so angry with what had happened that he sent he airdropped explicit pictures of the ex-girlfriend. And anybody in the school lunchroom who had their airdrop on received the pictures. That's receiving obscene material said to if it's sent to somebody under the age of 18. So, the impulses that kids have don't necessarily follow logic all the time, and their critical thinking skills kind of go off the racks when there's something that is like a breakup happens in their life. They're not thinking. We need to talk to them about that responsibility of really thinking ahead before doing something online. Go ahead, Amelia. So the other grooming tool that traffickers will use is pornography. Pornography is fairly normalized now. It is everywhere. It is used as a grooming tool for traffickers. It is also something that is considered to be more like entertainment nowadays, or a way to de-stress. So a case in Northern Virginia of a boy who had been sexually abused and likely trafficked, and during the interview that he was having with one of his mental health workers, it came up that he learned a lot of what he was doing from pornography. And she said, well, did they show? He said, no, it just seemed normal. It was what was always on when I was home, when certain family members were there. So it was being played as just kind of a way of entertainment in households. And again, that normalizes that behavior. And one of the hardest things about teaching prevention education on human trafficking is that a lot of kids don't ever hear the vocabulary that victims need to know. Being exploited, what's good touching and bad touching, what the words that are used to be able to identify that something is wrong aren't always taught. And so when interviewing this boy, it became very clear that so much in his life had been normalized towards his sexual abuse, and that just seemed normal to him. Pornography will obviously normalizes CSAM, but it encourages the content in most pornography encourages sexual abuse and rape and violence. And it also, on the other hand, promotes false narratives about relationships, healthy intimacy, and consent. With the teenagers, a lot of the education that we try to put through is this idea of consent. What does consent look like? And I wish I would have included the video. There's a video about TEA, and about, thinking of consent as having tea. If you're asleep, you aren't going to want tea. If you say you want tea 1 minute and somebody brings you tea 10 minutes later and you're like, I don't want tea, that stops the consent that you gave for wanting tea earlier. It makes a lot more sense online, but if you look up consent and tea on YouTube, you'll find it, and it's an exceptionally well done video that relates to just that understanding. You can go ahead and turn the slide.
I'm writing down that note.
Okay. So let's look at what traffickers are looking for and in young people in particular. So they are looking for people, and again, these are vulnerabilities, lacking a sense of belonging to others, not feeling respected or valued by family members or friends, basing your self-worth on popularity or relationships ties directly in with your social media accounts in a lot of ways. Kids who are willing to keep secrets, and in a way that's them feeling that they're trusted, right? And they are willing to keep relationships secret. They don't have maybe necessarily good relationship with their parent. That's not everybody, but a lot of them are looking for some place to get love and acceptance. Looking for a boyfriend or girlfriends, or bored, not having too much to do. Kids who tend to spend more time away from family and friends would be easier targets. And those who are a little bit more gullible. They're willing to take directions, believe lies and false promises. We also know that traffickers will target people with emotional disabilities. There was a case that our founder worked where there was, and this was a while ago, but in a grocery store that had hired kids with special needs to come and move the shopping carts. And they were the same kids, and they were coming and going, and a trafficker came in and started befriending some of them and sharing information and just telling them how happy they were to see them again, and building this relationship of trust over a long period of time. Finally was able to convince them to share their information and invited them to meet with him. And it led to a trafficking case where the kids were brought to hotels and had other people coming in to have sex with them for money. Thankfully, the person was caught, was prosecuted, but the disgusting part about this story is that he preyed on kids that could not really completely grasp what he was doing. So they're in it for the money, and they have it's no holds bars with traffickers. It's all about the profit. Go ahead, Amelia. So the lures for victims: fun and excitement, peer pressure to join in, financial gain, and drugs. A lot of that peer pressure, the financial gain or drugs, the social status, those you see a lot in the gang-controlled trafficking. And we have instances in the greater Washington area of MS-13 gang members infiltrating in our high schools and having scouts that work for them to traffic outside of school hours. It's very important that you know who your kids are talking to and who they're hanging out with. It's about open conversations and honest conversations. Luring, again, social status, the culture that they're part of can lure them if they're into, if it's a party culture, if it's a drug type culture, if it's just a culture of some kids just want to kind of have a bad side, and getting involved in things that are criminal can be something that lures them into this lifestyle. Sometimes it's getting protection, and unfortunately that's a reality. And if a kid is being bullied in school and has nobody to get help to help them, then that's a vulnerability. And if you have a scout infiltrated in a school and they're looking for that, they can promise the protection, but there's a price to pay. Lack of understanding, again, that's where education comes in, seeking identity and a safe sense of belonging, and then just wanting a sense of autonomy and agency, which is one of the most common ways a trafficker will pull someone away from friends and family, is that you don't have to be like them. You don't have to listen to them. You do you. You be who you want to be. And that is one of those lures. Go ahead, Amelia. Thank you. So it's important you notice warning flags, warning signs and red flags. And these would be common to both kids who are being sextorted or those who may be being groomed in person through trafficking. Look for changes in mood and behavior. I realize that some of these, having raised 6 kids of my own, this sounds like every middle school to teenager that I had in my home and their friends. But it's different when you're looking at it from a lens of taking everything and putting it together. So change in mood of behavior, change in their dress or style, signs of any kind of physical abuse, or changes that they look like they're tired or they're sleepy, and you know that there's really no reason for it. Loss of skin color, noticeable changes in weight up or down, and then tattoos. Tattoos are a branding way of branding a victim of trafficking. Look at the change in friend group. Know your kids' friends. Is there a decrease in motivation all of a sudden? They don't want to do things. They have unexplained material possessions. Check the backpacks for extra phones. Make sure that you're aware of what they're wearing and doing and where it came from if it's something that you're not familiar with. Are they a little more sexually promiscuous in how they talk and maybe how they want to dress or how they dress? And are they more focused on material possessions or on money? All of those things could be a red flag that something else is going on. Doesn't necessarily have to be trafficking, but it could be a really negative relationship that's starting up that you want to be aware of. Next slide. So you're going to have to keep putting on this. I forgot to turn off the animation. So taking action, making sure that you talk with your kids and they understand the dangers of human trafficking, sextortion, bad relationships, not trusting everybody, and make sure you speak on their level. Again, encourage them to have 3 trusted adults that they can go to and tell them anything. And one of those people could be a school counselor, it could be a teacher. I will tell you a story at the end about a student who did have a teacher that was willing to listen and saved her life. If you notice the red flags, start the conversation and express your love and concern and listen. Victims often go unnoticed, and when you acknowledge that you see something wrong, they know you care. Go ahead, Amelia. You want to ask questions, no victim blaming. Call 911 if you suspect something online or in person. You have your local offices, law enforcement offices to call as well. And again, really important to remember not to delete anything. And oftentimes just keep everything the way that it is. And I think one of the most important things you can do for your community is to share 3 things that you learned today on this webinar. Share it with your neighbors, with family, with friends. Share 3 things. I grew up in the age of the DARE, when DARE kicked off. It was the just say no. It was the egg in the frying pan, and it interrupted every time we wanted to watch our shows on Thursday nights. That commercial came on every single 15 minutes. We were talking about drugs. We were talking about the dangers of drugs. We aren't talking about sextortion or human trafficking because it's new. It's new to us as parents, and it's something that our kids are starting to have to deal with on their own, and they're young and don't understand adult kind of complex relationships and really don't understand what evil looks like. So once we are talking about it, when we're giving them the verbiage to use, the easier it will be for them to be able to identify dangers. So I'll tell you just the quick story. So we had a case where with the curriculum that we use in schools for ATI, a girl worked at the mall and got her first job, and she had everything going for her except she didn't have a boyfriend. And she always missed out on what her friends had just because they had those relationships. But she was smart as all get out. She was popular. She was athletic, and she was ready to go to college in a couple of years. So she got a job at the mall, met a boy who was a little bit older than her, and they started to date. Over a 6-month period, he kind of talked her into dating, and she was keeping it from her parents because he was a little bit older. But she really had a very great admiration for him, and the relationship lasted for a while until a problem came up and he wasn't able to pay his rent. And she was trying to help him in whatever way she could, but she couldn't give him the money that he needed because her parents were very aware of what her bank account looked like. And he finally told her that if she wasn't able to help, he was going to have to move, and then the relationship was over. And that to her was everything, was that relationship. And so he gave her an ultimatum. He said, I'm going to have to leave, but I have a friend, and if you sleep with him, he'll pay the rent. He said, I know that sounds awful, but that is my only solution at this time. And she said, no, I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, I'm going to have to leave. Just consider doing it. And she sat on it for a while, and she said, okay, let me think it through. And she went to school the next day, and the prevention curriculum that she was given that day gave her the knowledge to recognize that what he had been doing the whole time was grooming her, manipulating her, and now trapping her. She went to a teacher the teacher who had given the class that day, and told her, and the teacher brought in the school counselor, and together they brought her mom in and explained to her, she explained what happened, and they called the police. And this person who had been grooming her all this time was trafficking other girls in the Northern Virginia area. And this became a case that was prosecuted, and he is in jail now for human trafficking. So it can happen to the most unlikely of people, and very innocently. The traffickers know what they're doing, and they lie, and they do what they do very well. And they have a lot of money to be able to groom and trap and recruit people in our area and all over the world. So trafficking looks a lot different in the United States than it does overseas. People aren't generally kidnapped off the street and put in white vans and driven away. I'm not saying that doesn't happen overseas, but here it's a lot more subtle. So just be aware and be educated, and make sure that you talk to your children about those dangers. Thank you, Amelia. I think that's the end of mine.
All right. Thank you so much, Erin. I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you jumped in and did this for us with like a week's notice. So thank you for that.
No problem.
This is amazing. So I want to kind of wrap us up before we're done here and talk about, okay, how do you have a conversation with your kids? Just so you could be able to have just those conversation starters. So if you're tonight or tomorrow over the weekend, you have that casual time with them, and you just bring it up. So you have a few things. These are actually from the FBI's website. So if you want to go out on their website, you can take a look at it. Again, they're on our Facebook page if you want to go out and check those out as well. Or you can screenshot this if you want to as well. So if you think about this as kind of that, we talked about DARE, now we're talking about, this is the new version of don't talk to strangers conversation that we all had as kids. Or the don't take candy from a stranger's conversation, which is more like don't accept pictures or nice things from a stranger, or give information or pictures of yourself to strangers either. I mean, it's those basic common sense things that I think our generation as parents, we all got that, but now we don't know how to talk to our kids about the same type of conversation. So that's kind of where this comes from. But when you're online, has anybody you don't know ever tried to talk to you? My kids go to a school here in Fauquier, and they're my 6th grader. They use Prodigy, which is some kind of an app for math. And of course, she wants to be able to use it. And Mom makes her type her homework on a typewriter. And so we were talking about it, and I said, okay, the questions that I was asking her is, okay, who else is using this? Do you have friends on it? What do you do? Is there a way to be able to communicate at all with anybody in it? kind of walking through some of those kinds of conversations, because kids don't know. All the other kids are using whatever it is. That doesn't mean that your kid needs to use it. So asking them about it, and has anybody else ever tried to talk to you that you don't know? What did you think or do if that happened, or when that happened? Asking those things, kind of setting that expectation, seeing where their head is at is really important to be able to walk them through this. Why do you think that somebody would want to reach a kid online? Ask them the question, see what they're thinking in there. And it's easy to pretend to be someone that you're not when you're online, and not every person is a good person. Make sure you block or ignore anything that comes through that you don't want from anybody that you don't know in real life. Just walking through those kinds of conversations with them. Again, the power of a picture, walking them through. So thinking about with these pictures, what happens when you send a picture out. Or has anyone ever sent a picture of themselves that got passed around school or a team or a club? Probably they might. What's possible anytime you send someone a picture. Kids may not understand that somebody can screenshot it. They think it, like on Snapchat, it goes away. Well, if somebody screenshots it fast enough, what if that picture that you sent to your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever it is, what if they did save that in another way? So when you took it down, it goes out there. You heard plenty of examples of that tonight. What would you do if that picture was embarrassing? Can you think about how somebody could use that kind of a picture against someone, you or someone else? Those types of things. And I think going back to what Aaron talked about, the importance of being there for them, letting them know that you're there to help as a parent, that you're there to be non-judgmental, that, hey, you need to be able to be there to have that conversation, to understand that they're a victim in this, that them having access to the internet, whether it's through a gaming device or a phone or an iPad or a computer, however they have access, that they're out there as a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or a teenager against full-grown adults that do this for a living. And you have to know that if this happens, that they're the victim in it, and helping them understand, you're the victim, bring it to me, I'm the adult, let me work through this. And then turning around with these tools that Candace and Kathleen gave you of, block the person, don't delete it, call the sheriff's office, take them the phone, do these things so that they can go after that predator, but also to be able to help you get those pictures and videos down off the internet through NCMEC. So these are all really important things. So with that, I want to open it up for Q&A, and I'll go ahead during this time while we're doing Q&A and start loading in some of these videos into the chat as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing if I can figure out how to stop sharing here. And let's see here, stop share, boom, done. And all right, turn it over for Q&A.
Yes, you can use either the chat or the Q&A for any of your questions. And feel free to ask anything to our division staff, our mental health staff, and any of our awesome presenters tonight. We thank you so much for all of you spending your evening with us, and for all the powerful work that you all do. So ask away. There was so much powerful information, scary information, a lot of knowledge tonight. Please fill in any questions.
While we wait for some people to fill in questions, I just want to let everyone know I get asked a lot, how do I prevent my kid from being a victim of human trafficking? And I tell all of them that just being involved in your kid's life is the #1 step to preventing that. So knowing what they're doing, knowing who their friends are, caring about the stupid little things that they have going on in their life is the #1 thing you can do to prevent them from falling victim to human trafficking. And it is much more common than we actually want to think it is.
Thank you for that. Let's see. Do we have any questions that are coming in through chat? Loading pictures if anybody has questions.
Carol, I believe I saw something pop up from you. Would you mind sharing that? It disappeared on me.
Okay, so I did get a bunch of questions. Some of them already have been answered throughout the presentation, but there's one that kind of struck me as interesting. This one parent said, I feel like young people nowadays want everything to be public and they want instant gratification. I think that they may have been desensitized to the dangers that lurk out there to the point that some might not even care. How can we work on this? It seems to be a psychological issue.
That's a great question. I'm not sure which one to tackle that one there. Is that a good one for Candace or for Kathleen to be able to tackle?
I feel like that question is absolutely correct. Kids don't have a filter anymore. They think that everything needs to be public. And that starts at home with the parents and educating and controlling and keeping a tab on what they're doing, or not allowing them to have, devices at a very, very young age. And I can tell the difference between a child that's been online from a very young age from one that hasn't had a lot of access to, technology. So just being present, preventing them, you're the parent, don't let them tell you what they have to have and what they have to do because they want to fit in. You're the adult, you tell them what you're going to let them have, and you're going to monitor that, and you're going to put restrictions in place to allow screen time and to monitor things. Another thing that I'd like to hit on that I didn't really touch on is taking the devices to their bedroom. So many parents just let them take them to the bedroom or let them take them wherever, and they don't pay any attention. And then what's happening behind those closed doors in their bedroom, the parents have no idea what's happening. So this is just a rule that I had in my house, and it might be helpful to people, that right before bed, everything had to be charged out in the hallway. Nothing was allowed to be charged in your room, because they would say, oh, I need to charge it, and they would put it in their room. No, they're on it all night long, and they're not going to sleep because they're looking at their phone. So if they have to charge it in another common area where you can make sure their devices are there, that's very important. Another thing that I also see a lot of when I'm talking to teenage girls that have had their images, shared, or they sent them to a said boyfriend, and then the boyfriend's, sharing them amongst people, or the pictures have gotten out, is that they don't care. They just feel like everybody's taking nude photos, so what's the big deal? It's no big deal. They have no filter. Like somebody said earlier, when I was a teenager, I would be mortified if I be terrified to send a picture like that. But the kids these days, they're just, I don't know why they think that it's okay to share the pictures, because they just feel like it's not a big deal. They don't care. They don't care that their body's out there, that people have seen it. It's not a big deal to them. But how it starts is just by that conversation at home with the parents and restricting the access.
And just to kind of dovetail off of that, Candace, and I'm a little older, so it floored me to learn that it is common for teenagers to share those nudes as part of the dating, deciding whether or not you're going to date somebody.
Right.
That's how and that just psychologically, how messed up is that to
Right.
say you're rejected after you send a nude? What does that do for a person? The conversations have to be just so radically different than what I think anyone expected to have when they had
they
their
have
kids.
to start younger and younger.
Younger
Because
and
these
younger.
kids are on cell phones. And my daughter's in first grade, and she talks about riding the bus, and she's very limited. She's never had access to a lot of stuff. And she talks about, oh, I was sitting on the bus and they were looking at videos. And I'm like, who's looking at videos? And she's like, oh, this is a second grader. She has a cell phone. And I'm like, here I am thinking that she's not really access technology, but on the school bus, it's right next to her the entire ride to school. And I can't control it because it's not my phone or not my device. So you really need to talk to them about what they're seeing and what they're doing. And luckily she comes home and tells me everything everybody does. So she's a really good tattletale, but it's helpful. So.
That was a great strategy with making sure you keep the phones out of the bedroom. Are there any other strategies you all could share of, just because these preteens can put up a pretty strong argument about
Also
how
out of the
important
bathroom.
those phones.
So many
Oh, the
out of the
bedroom.
You're like, well, I'm going to the bathroom and I'm scrolling through my media, whatever. It's like, well, it doesn't need to be in the bathroom. It makes the bathroom time half the time that they're in there.
Very true.
That just makes it easier for them to take photographs of themselves if they're in the bathroom.
My favorite tip that I didn't do, but someone very close to me did do or does, is everyone in the family has access to each other's phones. So anyone can pick up anybody's phone and keep them accountable. So the parents' phones are open, so they have to keep things accountable, and then the kids are too. And it's been a very successful way of keeping everybody on top of things. Plus, you get a little insight as to what kind of things that are going on that they might be talking about with their friends, and then starting those conversations. But I thought that that was a scary, I don't know that I would have been bold enough to do that as a parent back when my kids were younger, but what a brilliant way to keep everybody safe.
There's also a really good video or movie on Netflix. I'm completely blanking on the name, so if anyone knows the name, please shout it out. But it dives into the social media platforms and how they are so good at their job. They're so good at targeting people and having people just glued to the application. And they made a comment in the movie that a like on Instagram is basically like hitting a slot machine and winning. So you need to kind of tell your kids like they are designed to draw you in and keep you there. I don't remember the movie, but I know it's on Netflix. And all these head honchos
Social
of
Dilemma.
Social
Social
Dilemma.
Dilemma.
All
It is
these head
such a good
honchos.
movie. Changes everything.
It is very good. I would highly suggest watching it. And all these big wigs who created Snapchat, Instagram, they do not let their children on it for a good reason.
Candace, could you share what to do if you do find like nudie pictures on your child's phone? You know, the idea, send that to me, of course, is not what you want to do.
No, absolutely not. If you find nude photos of your child on their phone, I would, first of all, talk to them about why they took them and if they shared them with anybody. If they haven't shared them with anybody, I would immediately delete them off of their phone and have that and probably take their device and not allow them to have a device. If you find that they did share them or they have been sent out, then you can always contact the sheriff's office and we can take their phones and download them to see where they went or what happened to them. I will tell you though, the Virginia Code, if there is any type of CCM, child sexual abuse material on a device, I cannot give it back to them. So that's where the caveat comes in, where a lot of parents or people don't want to bring their phones in because they don't want to lose their device or they don't want to get their child in trouble for, manufacturing child pornography or distributing it by sending it out, because you can be criminally charged. In Fauquier, we typically don't charge children with that. It's more of an educational thing. Like, I go over the code, like this is technically a felony. You can't take pictures of yourself. You can't send them to people. It's a crime. And we go through, it's more educational and it's kind of like a warning. But if they come back again, and then I've had kids that think that they're, able to do it again and they send more pictures, then that's when we have a more serious conversation and we actually do sometimes charge children. But I'm more than happy to sit down with your child and talk to them, because I'm a parent and I know that my kids listen to everybody but me because I know nothing and everybody knows everything else. So sometimes having a third party have a conversation about the seriousness of those images and just talking to them about respecting them, having respect for themselves and not sharing that with the rest of the world. So I would recommend just having a conversation with your child, and then if you need to, bring them in and you can bring the device and we can go from there to see what we can uncover.
Related to Renee's question, and Candace, you kind of touched on this. We did get a question in the chat asking, aren't the kids that share the pictures also guilty of producing CSAM, even if it's their own body? It's still illegal. Are there no consequences for the kids now? Is what they asked.
They are. So a lot of kids don't understand that just because they took the picture of themselves, even if they don't even send it out, they're still manufacturing and they're still possessing child sexual abuse material. And it is illegal and there will be consequences. Usually, typically for the first time, we just try to do more of an educational thing. But if the child seriously is struggling with other areas and we feel that, criminal charges may help, get them into some type of therapy or some other services, we can go that route. Just kind of, it's a case by case situation.
I also want to touch on the differentiation between a sextortion victim and then kids who are sharing it between friends and amongst the school. So generally, sextortion victims are indeed a victim and we treat them as such. The individuals who take it and then send it to their friends because it's cool or funny or whatever are generally not treated as a victim, and then we will have a much different conversation with them.
I'm glad you covered that to make sure we understand the difference.
We had another comment in the chat that just wanted to thank everybody for their time, and they asked if, as a school division, we could provide a list of all the videos that were shared, breaking them up possibly into age-appropriate groups, that along with all the websites that you all recommend to give out to all our division families, which we can definitely do that and work together in creating that.
I've dropped all those in the chat. I don't know if the rest of the world can see all of those, but I went ahead and I found the one on the tea and consent is out there as well. But certainly welcome to share those. I will remind you that all of those are also on the Fauquier Anti-Sex Trafficking Alliance page as well, as a resource. So you could always go out to our Facebook page and pull any of those.
I am not seeing them in the chat. Is anybody else seeing them in the chat?
No.
Where am I
But
chatting
see,
to?
I think they went over to the original webinar link that we were in, and then we switched over here. So they're in a different chat.
Oh,
I just see the cat
I can
video.
still grab them. So let me grab them and I can.
Perfect. All right. If everybody just hangs on.
Yeah, hang on. I will go grab all of those. I did not realize that there was two sets of chats here.
Sorry, guys. This was a confusion webinar link situation.
We got it all ironed out though.
We did. We pulled it together at the very minute. Do we have any questions about, they talked a lot about mental health as well, for these kids and what they're going through. Do we have any questions about that? Oh, and we did have someone say we did see the cat video link, so they're good there.
Got it. And the cat got to that one. So it's weird that made it, but the other ones didn't. I
think somebody else posted the cat video.
Oh, maybe that's why. Okay. That might be why.
Cassandra, who was a guest.
Figure out how to get back to it.
Chrissy,
Well,
I just mailed them to you. I got them and I emailed them to you.
The links?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. And I'm not going to keep messing with it because I can't figure it out.
It's okay. We will share that as well as this recording that is translated. So that we don't keep anybody any longer. We just want to say one more time, any last questions you all would like to ask before we close things out for the evening? We really appreciate everyone getting on tonight. Thank you. Carol, I see your hand up.
I do have one last question, if I may. And
Sure.
this is something that maybe Donna can help, and it's particularly related to FCPS. One of the questions I got was, does FCPS have classes and curriculum on online safety that are mandatory for all students? Are they age appropriate? Which grade levels are they taught? And if so, are they a one-time class or they're taught multiple times throughout the student's academic career? I thought it was a good question.
I don't know. Tina might be the best person. I don't know if she's around to answer
I
that.
am. I'm right here.
Yeah.
So we do not have required online safety courses like an actual class, but all schools are to incorporate digital citizenship and digital safety into their everyday curriculum. In some cases, some schools do it through PE and health classes, because that is actually part of their curriculum to cover that. Others will do it during some other classes, but we are required by the state to provide some type of information and training throughout the year. It's not necessarily a separate course, but it is something that we need to make sure that we embed on a regular basis with our students. And that is K through 12 that we are to do that.
Thank
And
you.
then just having come from like middle school and high school, you know, being an administrator, I mean, these things are something we talk to the students about all the time throughout the school year, just trying to, you know, educate them about the dangers of the things that they're posting or saying. So it's definitely an important topic that's talked about regularly.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, if any of the schools would like to invite us in, we are happy to do a very shortened version of this without the videos, so that what Candace and Kathleen went through, it is a very short, fits in a assembly. We also would have it to talk about curriculum, being able to get that into the schools as well. So I'm happy to help wherever we can to support you guys and be able to support our kids.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all. I see all the videos are in the chat, but we will also put them when we give out the webinar recording with the translation. We'll also include those with putting it out there for resources. I want to thank you all again for a wonderful presentation, so very powerful, and appreciate all your time getting on with us this evening. And I want to thank you all out there watching our webinar tonight. Be on the lookout for another webinar in February. We're trying to keep up these family webinars every month, so different topics every month. So thank you again. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.